The United States and China have once again found themselves at the negotiating table. After months of escalating trade tensions, high-level officials from both countries met in Geneva on May 10, 2025. This meeting marked a significant development in the ongoing trade war. It signaled a willingness to engage in dialogue. However, the path to resolution remains uncertain. The two economic giants are grappling with a complex web of economic and political pressures. The resumption of talks came as a surprise to some. The relationship had become increasingly adversarial. Both sides had imposed significant tariffs on each other's goods. These measures had taken a toll on their respective economies. The decision to return to dialogue suggests a recognition of the potential costs of continued conflict, but it remains to be seen whether this will translate into concrete progress. The world is watching closely. The outcome of these talks will have far-reaching implications for the global economy. The US and China are the world's two largest economies. Their trade relationship is vital to global growth and stability. A successful resolution to the trade war would be a positive sign for the global economy. However, a failure to reach an agreement could further destabilize the global trading system. The current trade war began in 2025 when former US President Donald Trump imposed tariffs on Chinese goods. Trump accused China of unfair trade practices, including intellectual property theft and forced technology transfer. He argued that these tariffs were necessary to protect American jobs and businesses. China denied these accusations and retaliated with tariffs of its own. The initial round of tariffs targeted specific industries. However, the situation quickly escalated. Both sides imposed tariffs on a wider range of goods. By 2025, the U.S. had imposed tariffs on approximately $370 billion worth of Chinese goods. China, in turn, had imposed tariffs on $110 billion worth of U.S. products. These tariffs have had a significant impact on businesses and consumers on both sides of the Pacific. The tariffs have disrupted supply chains, increased costs for businesses, and led to higher prices for consumers. The International Monetary Fund estimates that the trade war has reduced global GDP by 0.8%. The tariffs have also created uncertainty in the global economy. Businesses are hesitant to make long-term investments when the trade environment is so unpredictable. The ongoing trade war between the US and China has placed significant strain on both economies. While the initial impact was somewhat muted, the prolonged nature of the dispute has begun to reveal deeper vulnerabilities. In the US, certain sectors, particularly those reliant on Chinese imports, have experienced job losses and reduced profits. The agricultural industry, for example, has been hit hard by retaliatory tariffs on soybeans and other agricultural products. China, too, has felt the pressure. The trade war has exacerbated existing economic challenges, including slowing growth and rising debt. The Chinese government has implemented a range of measures to mitigate the impact of the tariffs, including fiscal stimulus and monetary easing. However, these measures have had limited success in offsetting the negative effects of the trade war. The interconnected nature of the global economy means that the trade war has had ripple effects beyond the US and China. Other countries that are heavily reliant on trade with these two economic giants have also experienced economic slowdowns. The uncertainty generated by the trade war has also weighed on global investment and business confidence. The decision to return to trade talks is driven in part by domestic political considerations. In the United States, President Biden has faced growing pressure from businesses and lawmakers to resolve the trade war. They argue that the tariffs are harming the U.S. economy and doing little to address the underlying issues in the U.S.-China trade relationship. In China, President Xi Jinping is also facing domestic pressure. The trade war has slowed economic growth and created uncertainty for Chinese businesses. Xi is also aware that the trade war has damaged China's reputation on the world stage. He is likely hoping that a resolution to the trade war will help to bolster China's image and strengthen its position in the global economy. Both leaders are also acutely aware of the optics of appearing weak or capitulating to the other side. This delicate balance of domestic pressures and international posturing adds another layer of complexity to the already intricate negotiations. The outcome of the talks will likely have significant implications for the domestic political landscape in both countries. Section 5. A calculated display, Xi Jinping's strategic visit to Moscow. Just days before the Geneva talks, Chinese President Xi Jinping made a significant trip to Moscow. His presence at the 80th anniversary of the victory over Nazi Germany, alongside Russian President Vladimir Putin, sent a clear message to the world. It underscored the strengthening ties between China and Russia amidst growing tensions with the West. The timing of Xi's visit was no coincidence. It served as a strategic maneuver in the lead-up to the trade talks with the United States. By aligning himself closely with Putin, Xi sought to project an image of strength and defiance. It also served as a reminder that China has other options on the world stage. Xi's visit to Moscow was a carefully calculated move in a larger geopolitical chess game. It highlighted the complex web of relationships and alliances that influence international relations. The U.S. delegation in Geneva was undoubtedly aware of the message being sent by Xi's visit. This added another layer of intrigue to the already high-stakes negotiations, setting the stage expectations and objectives for the Geneva talks. The resumption of trade talks in Geneva generated a flurry of speculation and analysis. Experts cautioned against expecting any major breakthroughs in the initial round of discussions. Instead, they emphasized the importance of these talks as a first step in a long and arduous process. The primary objective for both sides appeared to be re-establishing a channel of communication and setting the stage for future negotiations. The U.S. delegation entered the talks with a clear set of objectives. They aim to address what they perceive as unfair trade practices by China, including intellectual property theft, forced technology transfer, and market access restrictions. The U.S. also sought to reduce the trade deficit with China, which has been a long-standing point of contention. China, on the other hand, focused on securing the removal of the tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. They argued that these tariffs were unjustified and harmful to the global economy. China also emphasized the importance of mutual respect and win-win cooperation in resolving the trade dispute. Echoes of the past. Revisiting the Phase 1 agreement. The Geneva talks inevitably drew comparisons to the Phase 1 trade agreement signed in January 2020. That agreement, reached under the Trump administration, included a commitment by China to increase purchases of U.S. goods and services. It also addressed some intellectual property concerns and included provisions on currency manipulation. However, the Phase 1 agreement was widely seen as a limited deal. It left many of the thornier issues in the U.S.-China trade relationship unresolved. The agreement was also criticized for being heavily weighted in favor of the U.S. The Biden administration has indicated that it intends to build on the Phase 1 agreement. However, they have also made it clear that they are not satisfied with the status quo. They are seeking more comprehensive and enforceable commitments from China on a wider range of issues. Beyond the headlines, addressing the thorny issues. While the headlines focused on tariffs and trade deficits, the underlying issues in the U.S.-China trade relationship run much deeper. These issues include China's state-led economic model, its industrial policies, and its role in the global technology landscape. The U.S. has long expressed concerns about China's industrial policies, which they argue give Chinese companies an unfair advantage. These policies include subsidies for state-owned enterprises, preferential access to financing, and lax environmental and labor regulations. The U.S. is also concerned about China's growing technological prowess. They see China's ambitions in areas such as artificial intelligence, 5G, and quantum computing as a threat to U.S. economic and national security. The Biden administration has made it clear that they intend to compete aggressively with China in these critical technologies. The resumption of trade talks in Geneva marked a positive step in the right direction. However, it is essential to maintain realistic expectations. The U.S.-China trade relationship is complex and multifaceted. Resolving the outstanding issues will require time, patience, and a willingness to compromise on both sides. The path ahead is likely to be long and winding, with both sides encountering obstacles and setbacks along the way. However, the potential rewards of a more stable and mutually beneficial trade relationship make this journey worthwhile. The world is watching closely as the U.S. and China attempt to navigate this critical juncture in their relationship. The outcome of these negotiations will have far-reaching implications for the global economy and the future of the international order.